Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a special installment of City Lights Live, the virtual extension of the City Lights events calendar. I'm your host, Peter Maravellis. Today's event is being brought to you by City Lights in conjunction with Terra Press. We are delighted to be bringing together two great minds in an hour of conversation. We are also celebrating the publication of two remarkable new books. One is called The Shrine Thief, Finding Wisdom in a Life of Music. It's by William Alauddin Mathieu, and it's published by Terra Press. The second is The Secret Sounds of Ponds by David Rothenberg, published by Roof Books. Both books share a passion with the world of sound and composition and offer a glimpse into the creative life and thinking of two great virtuosos. Now, a word about Alauddin Mathieu and Shrine Thief. From time spent with jazz greats Stan Kenton and Duke Ellington to co-founding the legendary Second City improvisational theater group in Chicago, William Alauddin Mathieu explores a life lived in the creative arts and music. And yet there is another significant component to his journey. He received the title of Sufi sheikh from an heir of Inayat Khan. So his book is as much about the road towards wisdom as it is about his remarkable adventure along the way. Written in a lyrical style of prose, The Shrine Thief is a celebration of a life lived in the light of creativity. William Alauddin Mathieu is a classically trained pianist. He composed and arranged on the staff of the Stan Kenton Orchestra at the age of 21 and was a co-founding member of the Second City Theater. He studied with William Russo, Easley Blackwood, Pandit Pran Nath, and Hamza El-Din, and taught on the faculty of the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, as well as Mills College. A former columnist for Downbeat and Piano Today, he's the author of 5 books, including The Listening Book and Harmonic Experience, and has released over 30 albums. He's going to be joined today in conversation by David Rothenberg. What David Rothenberg has accomplished in The Secret Sound of Ponds is to continue the work he has begun investigating, recording, and collaborating with the music of birds and whales. By tossing a microphone into a pond, David Rothenberg read and heard and became aware of an entirely new realm, the unexpected and stirring rhythms of some of the smallest and loudest creatures on the planet. Recording the sounds of the animals and plants inhabiting each pond revealed perspectives far different than what we are accustomed to in our human society. The sound of ponds is music, and he makes this accessible to us through his engaging prose and conversations with environmentalists, ranging from Werner Herzog to Peter Gabriel to ecologists specializing in these unique waterscapes. Each pond episode brings the reader closer to a new understanding of the non-human world, helping us to better appreciate that which is often outside our everyday experience. David Rothenberg is a musician, philosopher, and publisher through Terra Press. He produces beautifully conceived and designed books in music, culture, and art, representing cutting-edge thinking, often on themes that fall between the cracks of the usual disciplines and categories. Terra Nova began as a literary magazine with an environmental bent back in 1995 and was published by MIT Press. It has grown into a full-blown publishing house, producing up to 4 books a year. Mr. Rothenberg is also the author of numerous books translated into many languages. He has produced more than 30 recordings of his own music and has performed or recorded with the likes of Pauline Oliveros, Peter Gabriel, Elliott Sharp, amongst others. He is distinguished professor at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. We have posted links in the event description where you may purchase The Shrine Thief as well as Pond Music. Really, it is such a great honor and a pleasure to have you both with us today. Welcome to City Lights.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, Alauddin, and to have published this book, A Long Road. Those of us who have been writers, authors, musicians, publishers, we know they're all long roads to oblivion, with rare moments when the mountains peak above the clouds, and then you climb up and go, yes, this is why I agreed to do this in the first place. And the publication of your book is one of those moments where the clouds are pushed aside as we climb above, and there it is, it's finally out. The Shrine Thief. What is this shrine and who is the thief?
Well, read the book, everybody. But here's what happened. My Sufi teacher died about 1971, and he was a very influential man in my life, Murshid Samuel Lewis. His influence has grown worldwide, and he's become well known in the larger spiritual community. And as it is with great men, great people with a lot of radiance and a lot of high guidance, he's stuck with us, and he's stuck with me particularly. And so I take a walk every day. I live out in the country, and there's this beautiful country road that I walk on, and there's a horse fence, white fencing like they have for horse farms, and I used to this little place of elevation, and I used to stand just above the road and just look out to the creek below and think about my teacher. And eventually I saw some beautiful rocks lying around, and I made a little shrine to him, just an odd thing, and put the rocks in just a certain place. And there was one rock which is so beautiful piece of quartz, and then I noticed that people in the neighborhood, it's very countrified, so there's not many folks around. They would sometimes they would add flowers or some special thing of their own, and it looked like this. Let's see, I should show the actual book. It looked like this. It's a beautiful cover, David. And so I stop there and I think about my teacher, and it became a little bit of a holy place for me, who doesn't especially go for holy places. I just, every place is holy, so, but this was special. And then one day I walked by and everything was gone, just really gone, and it's wiped clean. Now, I had checked with the owners, so I knew that it was okay with them. I could not understand what happened. Somebody who's, I don't know, it was a total mystery to me. And I think, allow me to see if I can find the place in the book. It's easy. Sorry for this. Well, I'll just tell it instead of trying to read it. And everything was gone, and I was first angry, and then I was just mystified. Who would do it? And then I suddenly found myself really almost overwhelmingly happy, because my shrine was gone. I didn't need it anymore. I didn't have it anymore. And I realized that what I have is with me in the moment. I don't need the shrine. I don't need to look back. I don't even need to look forward. I just have what I have. And it was a great moment of liberation and a sort of model for the rest of my life. So I turned to thanking the shrine thief, whoever you are, listening, I hope. You're my... Well, then I thought of building a shrine to the shrine thief, but no. My book suddenly clicked. I knew I was writing this memoir, which was, it's difficult to write a memoir. I want to talk to you about that, David.
Yeah, what's so difficult? Why is it difficult to write a memoir when we ourselves are full of stories? The stories just come out. What's so hard about writing a memoir if we all know our own stories so well?
I'll tell you what's hard about writing a memoir. In the first place, if you just want to tell your life story, just tell it detail by detail by detail, and then it begins to be hard to distinguish a memoir from a dirty laundry list. It's just like one thing, and then we moved to McCormick Street, and then we moved over to Baker Street. Who cares? Who cares? Actually, who cares? But most people who write a memoir have a subtext or some kind of inner purpose in doing it. I did. I've come to some understandings in my life. I wanted to share them. I think I'm a born teacher, and that's just what I'm compelled to do. So I wanted to say, look, this is what happened to me. I hope it helps you. And so there's this tension that develops between the genuine impulse to write something that's useful, that's beneficial to others, on the one hand, and on the other hand, me. It's all about me. Now, if you're famous, if you're a celebrity, people want to know what color your socks are. But if you're not, if you're what you and me, David, are called by Virginia Woolf, or termed by Virginia Woolf, the authentically obscure, then we don't nobody cares what color socks I wear or if I wear socks. So those kinds of details just they not only are uninteresting to people, they don't sell books, and that happens to be an issue when you're writing a book. So there is that tension between the self and the ego and this is my story and I'm going to tell it, and what's it to you? How can it help you? And I think that's the universal struggle for people like us who are writing memoirs. Nobody's heard of you, nobody's heard of me, but considering the 8.4 billion of us, but still in all. So my suggestion is, to answer your question, that you yourself, David, try writing a memoir. And the question is, what do you put in and what do you leave out?
Yeah, well, all my books are like anti-memoirs. I always write about what I'm doing, and then the people wanting to read memoirs say, why didn't you tell us what this felt like? Why didn't you tell us what happened? Or the people who were there say, that's not what happened. You didn't even write what happened. You made it all up,
Right.
Which reminds me of Bruce Springsteen's memoir, or his Broadway show, actually, when he says, I never worked in a factory. I'm not from the working class. You see, I made it all up. I'm that good. He can get away with that. Springsteen can say things like that. I don't think I would say. I wouldn't say that because I have no idea of my own value or worth, but I also don't feel I'm in control of the stories I'm telling. They just come out. Like you want to write one kind of book, then it goes this other way. It kind of goes, it takes over you, and then who knows. And I'm always looking for more advice from the outside world. If someone would tell me what to do, then I would know whether I should be a writer, teacher, musician, publisher. Couldn't someone tell me which one thing I should do, please? Because
no,
I don't know. They won't do that.
Don't ask.
Yeah. No? Okay.
No. Because you are one thing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What is the one thing? Should I already know or never ask?
You don't have to ask, actually, because you know. You're yourself, and you're multi-talented, multi-gifted. You do all these things, and you're restless if you don't do any one of them.
Yeah, I was always influenced by John Cage, who was seeking advice as a young man. He wanted to study architecture. He went to see this famous architect, actually named Goldfinger, who said, to be an architect, you must totally devote yourself to architecture. He said, I don't think I could do that. I also like music. So he went to see Schoenberg, who said, to be a composer, you must have an innate feeling for harmony. Schoenberg actually said that. And he goes, I don't know anything about harmony, but maybe I shouldn't do that. Everyone was demanding total obedience and devotion, maybe like to your shrine, total, bowing down before something. And he just wanted to do a mix of things, and so he ended up changing what it meant to be a composer, I guess. And that had a lot of influence
Right.
on me.
Right. Well, and actually, he's an okay musician. He's not a stellar musician, John Cage. He's but what he is he's a great John Cage, and he had a tremendous charisma, public charisma. He was a nice guy, and yes, he went where his impulses led him. And what he did, I don't know if he changed music much, but he was, I don't think of him as so much of a musician, but as a philosopher. He did change the way damn near everybody thinks about music. He changed the definition of it, and he opened it up wide so that the great discussion could take place.
Yeah, I think he did change music, actually, because he opened up to the idea that someone could be a composer and come from all kinds of backgrounds and places,
Right.
and that the
Right.
world of he was in the rarefied world of serious composers. They had to then take more seriously people like him who came from who knows where. And today you have many people like that, and now they're more diverse. They're coming from different cultures, they come from different backgrounds, and they have to be welcomed in because John Cage said, hey, all this is going on. And
Right. Now, it wasn't just Cage. The old order changes, making way for
Yeah.
the new. So it was happening anyway, but Cage was the voice of it. He found the words. And he was I think he was an actual Zen-ish guy. I mean, I think
Yeah.
he had those kind of empty experiences where all possibility comes in.
so how did you manage to, like, you felt the need to write this giant theoretical kind of pragmatic guide to harmony, similar to Schoenberg did, but at the same time choose this Sufi path, maybe away from your jazz musician roots. How did you feel the need to do those two very different things?
Well, when the student's ready, the teacher appears, is the old saying. And I didn't feel a need to do these things. I think they found me. My first encounter with many teachers actually that I've had was not positive. I didn't like them, and I didn't think I needed them. But something happened. This sort of it's going to get rapidly into a discussion of free will and free choice and who does what and where the impulse comes from. A boring discussion if ever there was one. But nevertheless, what happened was that what was once not attractive became attractive, and so it's like a good smell or a good possibility. You pursue it. It sounds good. It is good. So you listen harder. And that's what happened. The Sufi, I didn't decide to even be a Sufi. Sufis don't call themselves Sufis. The thing is, you can call me whatever you want. You can call me a Sufi, but I don't call myself a Sufi. I do say that I had a lot of really wonderful training from lots of different lineages. In a sort of oblique way, Judaism and Christianity and all the Abrahamic traditions and Hindu lineages, and particularly Buddhism. It's had a big influence on me. So aside from all the work of Inayat Khan, who was the person responsible for coming to America in the beginning of the 20th century, and interesting people in this very ancient sort of pre-religious lineage of Sufism, which the so-called Sufis of my lineage do not consider a religion so much as an exploration of the practices of the various and disciplines of the various religions, so that the mystical cores of those religions can be experienced through that particular ray. And we don't have a prophet. It's a school. It's an esoteric school. You learn about the experiences of others, and you practice their practices, and you find out what it's like to have those kinds of experiences. My teacher kept saying, Sufism isn't about concepts, it's about experience. And I find that to be the guiding principle of my life, even though I know more about theory than anybody alive. And this is the book that people are reading, and it's really changing the way music is taught. And when I'm playing the piano, I don't think about anything. It all goes away. All goes away. All this knowledge about commas and about harmonic progressions and about counterpoint and everything else. I'm very learned that way. It's not the way I play. I play like you do, David. I play, and all the concepts go away, and that's the way I think about so-called spiritual experience. I don't like the word. Everything is holy, everything is sacred, everything is spiritual. I just stand back and don't take sides. I just try to wake up.
Yeah. So is there a paradox in that? I mean, you and I are surprisingly, I would say, similar in these ways. In that,
Yes, and
like, I spent a lot of time going to school. I could read lots of stuff. I have lots of degrees and such, and yet when it comes to like doing music, even teaching and writing, like, I don't care about all that stuff. I don't know where it all went. I don't feel like I play musically in a very learned manner. I don't know what I'm doing.
You don't play in a very learned manner, but you're a boss clarinet player.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to hear that coming from you.
And you really sound good.
Thanks. Yeah.
And I have a theory. I have a theory about you. I have a theory about people. Here's my theory.
Yeah.
Mr. Philosopher, here's my theory. I think that the cerebral cortex, the part of our brain which is responsible for reason, which allows language to take place, which allows the intellect to thrive, and which allows you to stay out of the way of trucks, because you learn by experience, and you put together a lot of experiences, and they make a stream of understanding, which is what we call our human condition. I think the cerebral cortex was once, there are organs in the body, or organelles in the body, like mitochondria, that used to be separate. They weren't actually part of our organism, and gradually they got to be absorbed. So the mitochondria don't really run our minds, but we wouldn't have one without them. So they just do a specialized job, and so does everybody. Everybody's got their gig, right? Well, the mitochondria has their gig in my body. Okay, I think the cerebral cortex is fearful that it's going to be absorbed by the body, and it exerts tremendous control over us, and we become heady and thinking a lot and biting the insides of our mouths. The cerebral cortex just eats it up. And so what we have done in response is invent faith. Or art. It's what Aristotle called the willing suspension of disbelief. That organ turns off. It's our response to the despotism of the cerebral cortex, right? Thinking. One of my teachers, Zen teachers, said you can get more stinking from drinking than you can from thinking. No, the other way around. You can get more stinking from thinking than you can from drinking. But to feel is for real, he said. Okay. So my theory is that the likes of us do music and or meditation, and in your case, pond sitting, pond listening. It's a very good book that enters you into this totally connective experience. There it is. And lots of tracks that you can track on the internet. It's very very well done that way, and so it absolutely frees you from your philosophical and your intellectual training. And, and
Yes, I think I think I'm not such a good philosopher. Like among Mormons, they talk about Jack Mormons who leave the faith. I'm like a Jack philosopher. You kind of leave it all, and what's amazing is how many there are. I would say statistically, it may be 70 or 80% of philosophers leave and do something else. And even my teacher, my dissertation advisor, the process theologian Robert Cummings Neville, he said, yeah, every philosopher must have a public life. Most of them build institutions, but you could be a musician, but you need to do something or you'll get lost in these kinds of thoughts. And also, I mentioned in the book, you might have come to this part where when I was much younger, I was sure I understood everything. And I was also a bad student, rejected all these teachers. I don't want to learn this theory. I don't want to learn this harmony. I don't care about that music that this harmony represents. I'm looking for something else I haven't heard yet. And then I wrote this undergraduate thesis that was all in this style. And I sent it to John Cage. And he said, oh, you must take this to my publisher in London. I was wandering around Europe. Take it to Marion Boyers himself, my publisher. See what he has to say. So I said, okay, here, take it, And so I went and delivered it to this quirky, famous publisher. And then he sort of said, he's leafing through the pages. He said, I think this is the kind of book someone much older should write. Once you've lived, once you know some things, you've been around, then you can explain how the universe works and things like that. Now that I am quite a bit older, I have no desire to do that. I'm more interested in the most specific, the obscure, paying attention to these sounds right around us that no one knows about. They don't listen underwater. And then you just get into this thing so far away from making claims about the universe that it's so far away that in the end, if it is of some value, it then explains something simply by being so specific and luring you into the universal in the particular, I guess. But that's sounding a little too philosophical, because the book is like just cool sounds and stories. So if people introduce me as a philosopher these days, I say, no, I'm just playing music and telling stories. And I'm still stuck a bit in all these things I've studied, but I feel like I'm just sort of living and exploring and wanting to be drawn by these shrines that are out there in nature, something worth observing that maybe appears, maybe disappears. So
one of the things I liked about your book is that I've never understood the Cagean view, because my found sounds, the things that I find, are Miles Davis and Beethoven and the music that I've been drawn to and studied. I consider that part of nature because I'm part of nature. I don't make this distinction between humanity and the rest of the existence. We're just part of the fresco, and so I could never understand why mess with a pond. It's so itself. Why do something to it? Or why listen to 310 radios at once, like the Cage piece? Any of that stuff, I didn't understand it as well at all. Actually, it's sort of like I don't know, those guys. I don't know what they're doing, but reading your book and listening to the way you play, especially the is it the low E flat clarinet?
Yeah, the giant clarinet. You can hear that. That's here.
Yeah, that's just it's way down. And you play it in such a way that it does not disturb on, so that there really is.
It's just huge.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my god.
I usually keep it out in this room. You know, the guy who fixes my clarinet says, "Don't do that. You have to always put it away." No, then I'll never play it. It takes too long to put together. And besides, this way it's like always here. And then someone has to really persuade me to take it out of here and carry it places.
Hey, David, do me a favor and play me some of the really low, breathy Shalmo sounds.
Yeah, I can see why people say, like, why do you even write about this stuff? Just do it. Why would you write books about music that can say nothing more than these sounds are saying?
Maybe the answer is that you have to write the book to understand what to do. You have to explain it in order to be able to do nothing so successfully.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know why. I just see compelled to, like, pull the language in ways I didn't expect it would go. I should note that my book is not published by my own press, but by Roof Books, which is a publisher of experimental poetry, started by James Sherry, the poet and kind of theorist. He just likes things that don't fit in, in which I identify with him. He said my book, it's not you haven't transformed language enough, transform it more. Like, this guy was a tough editor. He was constantly making me feel terrible about the whole process. But I think he improved the book in some ways. I would say that editors, as you know, are tough, and it should be said that I did my best not to edit your book, but put someone more competent in charge, the great Evan Eisenberg, writer and editor, who works with me. I gotta
say, Evan Eisenberg was a wonderful editor, and he turned out to be a wonderful friend. He's tough. My wife, Davy, Mathieu, is an editor, and she's ruthless, but she's very kind. But she's intractable. She believes what she believes, and she'll say it, and then she'll say what every good editor does. It's your book. I wrote some things in that book I shouldn't have written, and Evan said, okay, if you want to publish yourself as a naive, reactionary, and unthinking person, you publish this chapter.
Right.
It's your book.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought that no chapters got cut. You kept adding chapters. You refused to cut anything. Are you telling me, like, we cut this stuff, or is it in there?
Both. I cut 80% out of the
okay. The offending part, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the offending member, we say. And and I did add some things, but the one chapter that Evan didn't like so much turns out to be the chapter that has caused the most commentary. It's not about Stan Kenton and Duke Ellington and famous people I've known and spiritual teachers. It's about my chapter called The Isness Business, which is my ontological summary of the way I think about the world and have thought about the world, so that, as I was saying about you, I cannot think about it anymore. But that was the ontological process, and that felt the best to write, but it was also the most difficult and subject to excess to write as a writer. It really tested me as a writer. I'm not a trained writer. I'm like you. I don't know anything about writing. I don't want to know anything about writing. I had to look up parataxis the other day. I still don't. I looked at 5 sources. I still don't understand it.
I don't know what it means. I have no idea what parataxis is. So,
but I know every musical term that ever existed, but I don't know anything about writing. For some reason, I didn't have to learn it, and for some reason, well, I know the reason. For a very good reason, I had to learn everything I possibly could learn that was available to me about music through teaching and through being taught and through experience. My own experiences, and the reason somehow I come from a literary family. My dad was a publisher and an editor and writer. My mom was a writer, and very creative woman, very creative man, and that's just what we did in my family. And I found myself journaling for 50 years, and I decided to write something. So I wrote my first book, the listening book. No training. I read authors I like. I really very carefully read authors I really like Annie Diller, Mary Oliver. But music is a different thing. I don't seem to have a very good musical ear. I have a lot of drive. I'm a creative guy, but I don't seem to have a good ear. You have a much better ear than I do. I have a lot more knowledge than you do, and it turns out kind of even. We can play together.
Well, what do you mean you don't have a musical ear? How can that be true if you've studied all this stuff?
I couldn't sing in tune. I played the piano, but I didn't really hear what I was doing until I was about 10 or 11, 12. I began to wake up and ask questions, and nobody could answer the questions. Finally, I got a jazz teacher who started to explain things to me, and when I understood them, I knew how to focus my ear. And many, many, many years later, I met Pandit Pranath, who was a very great Indian raga singer, North Indian, and that really opened me up. But before that, I studied with Easley Blackwood, who was a great harmonist. He taught me everything about harmony. I had to learn all this stuff. It goes on forever, and it's equal temperament. It only goes so many ways, and I had to catalog them, and it took 500-600 pages to write it in a book. And it turns out to be, because I don't have that good of a natural ear, I had to go to those extraordinary exhaustive lengths to explain it to myself. Now I can focus. Now I do have an ear. I know what I'm hearing, and I can sing in tune. Oh, incidentally, that singer that you have in your recording, what's her name?
Ilgin Deniz Akseloglu.
How do you say her first name? Ilgin.
Ilgin. Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, she's in tune. She has one of those like early music voices, no vibrato.
It's so nice of you to say that. She never sung anything before. She never recorded anything. She never performed anything before this. This is her first performance foray.
Perfect. She's in perfect tune. She reminds me of people like Joni Mitchell, who just are in tune. Dolly Parton.
Okay, I'm going to quote you on that. Ilgin Deniz Akseloglu reminds Aladdin Mathieu of Dolly Parton and Joni Mitchell.
Call me something else. Okay.
She's coming. We're going to be doing these live events here in New York in a few weeks. She's coming from Istanbul, and so it's going to be interesting.
Is she Turkish?
She's Turkish. That's how she has this unusual name that we are struggling to pronounce.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. When we worked on this, she was in Amsterdam in lockdown like everyone else. And we just worked on this online for months, for more than a year, before ever meeting in person. We worked on this project remotely, sitting on Zoom like we're doing now, creating all these things. And it even involved her joining on Zoom when I was out live at ponds, playing with ponds in the woods, and she would join like on a phone, joining in. And then it took a long time before we could actually do this live, and we met in France in this empty nunnery full of artists.
Yeah.
So it's a whole saga. All that's in the book. I don't know if it makes sense, the story, but there it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, I read it in the book, and yeah, that's right. She is Turkish. She said that, and I sort of thought she was Northern because she also Norwegians have that.
She lived in Norway. She was living in Norway, starting this school, the School of Artist Philosophers.
Oh my gosh!
And then the whole thing fell apart with the pandemic, and so I know it all sounds like some sort of fantasy story, but it's actually real. All these things.
I still want to read your memoir, man.
One day, have you read Sudden Music? That's some early attempt at memoiristic writing that I wrote when I turned maybe 40. So that's called Sudden Music.
Yeah.
I can send you one of those.
I have that.
Again, people would say, like, you don't learn anything. This guy, he doesn't talk enough about himself. Who is he really? Which is, I don't know. Has anyone said that about your book? We're not learning about you. Has anyone said, man, he left out the best stuff. I know this guy. He left it all out. Has anyone told you that?
Yes, because I did. Because the best stuff would harm people. And I'm not into harming people.
Right.
The best stuff were personal relationships. And my thinking about that is, if you're going to write, in my case it was with women, and if you're going to write about intimate romantic relationships, it's okay if the woman tells her side of the story on the facing page.
Oh, they should be like next to each other? That's interesting.
That's right. Yes.
What, is it okay if it's like self-deprecating, if people describe themselves and all their failings, which is often missing from memoirs by men, at least? You know, people reluctant to describe their own failings. But
my memoir is full of the regrets. But
I
didn't put in the major ones because they would have been, first place, they probably would have made me legally liable. And in the second place, there's nobody's business, actually, because they're between two people.
Yeah.
And what happens between two people happens between two people. Stays in Las Vegas.
Okay, but what things are fair game? If some things shouldn't be in memoirs, what should be in memoirs?
What can benefit the reader and not harm others? I mean, sometimes one's greatest devastations are the most valuable to read. Because, you know, everybody makes the same mistakes, basically. Just versions of them, different dynamic.
Right.
But if this is going to hurt some living soul, no. Or reveal secrets about somebody that should not be revealed. Like I say, facing page. If the other person has their voice and and you have their permission, fine. You can say whatever you want, but if the other person isn't there to give what, you know, and like I say in the book, there's dozens of ways of feeling that you have a merge with another person, especially if it's romantic and sexual, and a million ways of getting it wrong. So that's the way I think about it. It's just like nobody's business. And if there are a couple of cases in my book where I wanted to tell the story, but I completely disguised the people involved. The person involved was really an amalgam of many people. So, you know, and many of the stories in my book are about mistakes or failings or just plain blindnesses that I had, mostly blindness. Not yet awake in that part of my psyche, and the suffering I went through, especially in subsequent years, realizing the harm I did. And so they're what's called cautionary tales, I suppose, you know. And I think that's valuable, or can be valuable to people. It's certainly not self-hagiography. I mean, come on. I'm like you. I'm another schlub. I'm doing my work. We're just doing our work.
Yes, we're trying. But you probably don't feel this way, but I always feel pulled in these different directions, and I'm not sure I'm doing what I should be doing, writing what I should be writing, or I feel sometimes I'm looking too much for someone to tell me, like, come do this or come do that, that if left on my own, I'm not sure which path to take. I'm wanting someone to say, this path was of value to me, you should take that path, because on my own, I don't know where it's going. That I'm waiting for outside guidance, and many of my friends and colleagues say, don't do that, follow your inner guidance. But I often feel the inner guidance isn't there.
Is it there more than it was 40 years ago?
There's much less certainty, but I would say I don't worry about it. Like, I tend to separate now the doubt, the reflection, the philosophizing, the questioning from the doing. I know I can wonder about these things and puzzle, that I got to stop doing that and just do. And then when I'm doing, I forget my doubts. But they're still there, but I'm just not thinking about them right now. I can compartmentalize them.
So you just answered your own question, man.
Yeah.
Stop
right.
thinking. Stop thinking and start doing.
I have no problem doing that, believe me.
Then go wherever you want to do that day. There is no should.
Yeah.
The same thing with me, man. Mm-hmm. I think I gotta compose tomorrow, and it gets to be tomorrow, and I'd rather read the funnies, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's okay.
So
I feel I feel like, why add to all this creativity? Everyone's making something. There's so much being made. Nobody needs more from me, but then I forget about that and just do it. And what definitely always gratifies me is to show up in person and do some live event with other people, and particularly to bring other people along to do these things. This is the biggest change since when I was younger. If you would say read Why Birds Sing, an early book where I'm playing music with birds, I feel like I am like the hero doing this cool, crazy thing. Look at me, here I am. And now it's like, who can I get to join me? Let's get someone else to do this. Let's get Benedict Maurset to come from Norway and play with birds. Let's get this Syrian refugee activist Wasim Muqdad to play his oud with birds in Berlin. Let's watch what they do. I'll be part of it, but I want their stories. I want to make their stories possible with my question, hear their answers, because I'm more interested in everyone doing this together rather than me. It's I like to put people together, and I like so much the in-person wonder that cannot be turned into media, written about, recorded, or played. Like, you have to be there.
That's what you do, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do. On the other hand, when I am composing, which is as much as I can find time to do, I'm in ecstasy. I'm in a world apart from this world. And it's just, in fact, when I'm composing music, I feel empty and stationary, and huge swoops of sound energy come through me, and they're modulated by my sieve, by my, my being. But I'm not doing anything. It's just like this water going through a sieve, and then it takes the shape of the sieve and goes on to the rest of the ocean. And that's the way it feels when I'm composing. It is so serene and yet so active. Your whole brain is lit up when you're doing that stuff. And and this is only recent. I'm 86 years old now, and this is only in the last 15 or 20 years. Well, it increases. I think I got 20 years on you anyhow. And believe me, it keep going, man, because it gets better. It actually does get better. Live long. That's the best.
That's great to hear that, because, I'm at 61, I'm at the age where people start to feel like, enough, I've done too much of this. How can I keep going and feeling the same things, So it's good to hear that there's a lot more time ahead.
The reason that it was hard to write this book is because I thought when it was over, I had a kind of a postpartum. It took 5 years to write. Very difficult book to write for me. My first book was the easiest one. It just happened. It was a lark. They got harder as they went along because they became more deep and more trenchant, more probing about what actually is and what needs to be said. And then I thought, well, okay, I've told the story of my life. It's frozen. It's there. It fell off to the left, and I'm done. But it turns out it was exactly the other way. I could completely... Can I read you something?
Sure.
It's from my book. And this one I will have to find. Let's see. It's at the end of the Is This Business. That's chapter 12.
That was tough. This is tough to publish, to get the is spelling correctly, the capitalization, very sophisticated and unique language here. It was the final thing we changed in the proofs, was the spelling of is and biz and all that stuff. So let's hear what it sounds like to read this controversial section.
Well, this is the poem that comes at the end of it.
Yeah.
The Is This Business, I don't say this in the book, but it's actually kind of a joke on the Texan people in the all business. They're in all business.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Davies from Texas. It became a running gag, all business. Mm-hmm. And then from that came the Is This Business. Is This Business. So anyway, and it is like a kind of a comment on philosophy in general and ontology in particular. It's a biz. It's a shtick. It's a thing that people latch onto that they do. Not that that's wrong, but it seems a little separate from actual experience to me. So this is my answer. It's a poem called The Voice. You may live long enough to hear it as a cry through your bones, or a siren song over a storm, as a keening at the back of your mind, or a calm music well beyond your own devising. The voice calls when the leaping mind takes a deep breath inside the supine body. One plain day, you will hear yourself speaking with that voice as your own. You, the mother, the mathematician, the madman, you, the lonesome lover, the oboe d'amore story has suddenly ravished. The voice is yours now. You keep going. Then the future comes in, nameless and on fire. The voice speaks on its own. You listen. Your old world is compliant with this new one. You walk a long way while your voice speaks and speaks. When your body gets tired, your mind becomes simple and you sleep dreamless until morning. Soon, you'll hear others talking about your voice as a cry in their own bones, and a wind from behind, a heavenly music they will presently claim as their own. Very good. What seemed forgotten shows up on the road in another form. You keep going. There's no need to look back.
Yeah, keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah, we probably got an hour right there. Beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right.
Not too shabby.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think?
That was
Peter?
magnificent.
Did you get that, Peter? Did you get some
I was
of that?
laughing
Right,
so
right.
hard. The comment about Dolly Parton, and then the whole thing of to write a book so that you do nothing. I mean, I was like crying at that point. It was
All
fantastic.
right.
That was great. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is such a treat.
Peter, thanks so much for doing this. You're a very generous man.
Cool. All right.
And well,
Good
thank you
job,
so
guys.
much.
And
Ever grateful. This is fantastic.
yeah,
Thank you so
we'll
much.
be speaking more.
Yeah, and
Thanks a lot.
congratulations on both your books. They're fantastic. I can't
Thanks.
wait to. Yeah, can't wait to
Thanks.
check it out.
See you.
Thank you.